The video invasion has taken the world by storm. It is the biggest pop culture boom to strike since television itself. Young and old alike have been mesmerized by the lure of predatory piranhas, Pac-Man mania, and menacing Gorfian galaxies. And it is big business. Last year, the industry grossed $5 billion worldwide. That's almost twice as much as Hollywood movies made last year. 20 billion quarters poured into machines in arcades like this one, in restaurants, shopping malls, airports, drugstores. A healthy industry, but a controversial one.
If I had my way, I'd take them all out into a field and put about 10 gallons of gas on them and do away with them.
They're recreation. They're relaxing your mind.
I'm concerned about putting a stumbling block in front of the blind, seducing teenagers into involving themselves in games when they should be involved in real-life responsibilities.
I don't think I'm addicted to it, at least not anymore.
Critics complain the quarters are coming from the lunch money of children, that kids are wasting their allowances on these machines, and even worse, stealing to support their habits.
It started out with $1 or $2 or odd change that I had, and then it gradually increased to $20 bill, and then the last one was a total of $90 in one lump sum.
We've got trouble, folks, right here in River City. That's trouble with a capital T, that rhymes with V, and that stands for video. That's what a lot of parents, school trustees, and teachers think we get with the video games. Truancy, addiction to the machines, stealing of money, mixing with undesirable characters. These are the complaints from those who are opposed to the video explosion. But are we really watching the beginning of a new major juvenile social problem, or is this just another fad? A fad that, because of its novelty and its popularity, is creating a commotion.
In Oshawa, Ontario, Youth Bureau Detective Sergeant Gologly says these games are turning kids into criminals.
Our main problem is addiction. The young people play them, they get to like it, they become addicted to it, and then the first thing you know, they're stealing from home, stealing from grandparents, stealing from classmates, and end up shoplifting to sell the merchandise to receive money for it, and then they end up breaking and entering private homes, places of business in order to get ready cash available to push into these machines. Most of these places are rather darkened, whereas they can go back into a corner or slide behind a machine or something, and they get involved in the use of alcohol and drugs. They traffic in there because we've caught them in the past. And the one thing I would like to mention is one of those house break-ins alone, there was $500 in cash taken. And other than a few dollars that was spent on cigarettes that the young people wanted, the rest of it went right into the video games and the pinball machines.
Linda Richardson, a mother on welfare, had trouble with her 11-year-old son Alan. He was stealing money from her to play. She says he was like an alcoholic.
Yes, they will con, they will cheat, they will lie, they will steal anything they can to get that bottle. And with Alan, unfortunately, when he starts playing 1 or 2 video games, this whole type of pattern that you would associate with alcoholism suddenly comes out of an 11-year-old child.
Family counselor Larry Niesenbaum has treated several compulsive teenage video players.
Well, they're about as addictive as golf or softball or a number of other recreational activities. I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with golf per se, but if someone's golfing 5 days a week instead of meeting family or work obligations, then one could say they're addicted to golf and that it can do them a disservice.
The suggestion in some municipalities is that the parlors or the placement of the games be a certain distance from the school. Does that make any sense to you?
It makes a lot of sense to me. I don't believe in putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. It's one thing to have parlors available and to have someone say, well, am I going to go to school or am I going to go to the parlor? They make a clear-cut choice. But when the parlors are so close to the school that the choice isn't clear-cut, it's often too seducible. It's unfair to someone who is so vulnerable as many of our teenagers are. I think they ought to have the opportunity to play the games, but not at the expense of going to school.
The time, 2:42. a Thursday afternoon. It's spring break. Sergeant Glogly and his men play a surprise visit to a local Oshawa amusement arcade. Oshawa City Council, like many Canadian cities, is fighting the video invasion. They've banned kids under 14 from these establishments. Glogly's men are here looking for those underage who may have sneaked in to play Pac-Man. IDs are demanded. The youngsters comply. This visit is fruitless. No arrests are made.
Here in metropolitan Toronto, a municipal bylaw says that all video games must be at least 300 meters from any schoolyard. That would take a healthy young lad about 2 minutes to walk that distance. 300 meters. Now let's see. 1, 2, 3, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Well, this arcade falls well short of the 300 meters the bylaw talks about. In fact, it's only about 3 doors away from the school. It's one of dozens that are operating illegally here in Toronto. And despite pressure from family groups, the operators have been able to carry on. This one wasn't so lucky. It was inside the 300-meter limit, and the authorities forced it to close. Are we overreacting?
Yeah. Part of video games, part of the excitement, is that most of us are not familiar with how they work. There's a lot of other things that kids can spend money on that can get them into a lot more trouble.
Are these games really a problem, or are we just overreacting to a new craze the way parents in the past complained about the Beatles, the hula hoop, long hair, the twist? Tom Farrell runs one of Canada's largest video game distributorships, Atlas Coin Machines, and he says it's all just good, clean fun.
It's a definite challenge. It's definitely a challenge. I think it sharpens your reflexes. It increases your mental capacity. I think it's the best thing in the world for your mind.
Would you argue that an arcade can be an asset to the community?
Absolutely. It's nice to know where your children are. The child will say, Mom, I'm going to the arcade. I got my allowance. I'm going down to spend it. He comes back 2 hours later, he's happy. The business is very good.
Now, are you getting wealthy and rich and
No,
want
I'm
to
not.
become a millionaire?
No. I'm just making a very good living. Very good.
Is it a growing business, or are you in a pause at the moment? Or
No, I think it's almost peaked.
too many machines?
Too many machines. The country's flooded with them.
Meanwhile, the video games are becoming more and more popular and sophisticated, and the controversy continues with neither side giving any quarter.
It's not so bad if they're going to spend their money on the machines as long as it's their own money that they're spending. And in most cases, it's not in the long run.
Well, you got trouble, my friend. Right here, I say trouble right here in River City.
I've never seen kids come in here and say, oh, I had to beat up an old lady to get a quarter for Defender. You know, I mean, it's just not worth it, for one. Nobody's going to risk a criminal charge just to play a video game.
And all week long, your River City youth will be frittering away. I say your young men will be frittering away their noontime, supper time, shore time, too.
I also don't think that society has a role in deciding how one should recreate. There are many people who use video games in a very natural, enjoyable way without any kind of difficulties to themselves and others, and they should be free and allowed to do so.
You got trouble. Folks right here in River City.
But I guess it's better to be good at a video game than go out and kill someone. I think if you're going to be crazy about a video game and get caught up in it, then that's fine. It's better than being on the street or something. It keeps the kids off the street. It's a good place. There's lots of places like this.
I'm going to be perfectly frank. Would you like to know what kind of conversation goes on while they're loafing around that hall?
Usually, if we want to find some kids who are truant from school, we'll visit the arcade, and 9 times out of 10, they're there.
Mass hysteria. Friends, the idle brain is the devil's playground. Trouble. Right here in River City.
Well, I skipped a lot of school, but it wasn't for video games, just because I just wasn't interested.
We've surely got trouble. Right here in River City. We've got to figure out a way to keep the young ones moral after school.
If we can keep the children off the street or the people off the street, in an arcade or bowling alley where there's games, or a pool room where there's games, then they are out planning what house they're going to break into tomorrow.
Mothers of River City, heed that warning before it's too late. Watch for the telltale signs of corruption.
And you have to know when to quit. That's one problem. I kept on playing it too much, and I got addicted to it, and I used to play it right, left, and center all the time.
You got trouble, right here in River City. We've surely got trouble, right here in River City.
When I was a young boy growing up in Brandon, Manitoba, it was the pool hall that had our parents up in arms, and this was the symbol of a misspent youth. In fact, in those days, the pool hall was considered almost as sinful as a brothel. There were parent committees, school board meetings. They passed bylaws to keep us out of the places, but we still managed to sneak in and shoot the odd game. And it was in the pool hall that we smoked our first cigarette, that we skipped the occasional class, and we probably learned something about the facts of life. And as I recall it, most of the fellows who hung around that pool hall turned out all right. 5-ball in the side pocket. Not bad, eh?